All right, welcome Daniel Nation to our monthly podcast. You are tuned in to the Daniel Report. And tonight I have a special guest with me, Representative David Lowe from the Texas House of Representatives. We've been trying to get this interview now for a couple of weeks, and we finally were able to get our schedules to cross over and meet. So we're very excited to have Representative Lowe on our podcast tonight. We're going to be talking about the 89th Texas Legislature and what's going on and the status of some of his bills. And we'll be talking about some insider baseball as well. So hope you guys have your curiosity piqued. We're going to cover some great ground tonight. Just want to introduce Representative Lowe. He's from Tarrant County. Originally met him when I was going to the legislature in the last session in the 88th. And he was a part of our grassroots effort there to get child gender modification passed, prohibition on that, and other bills protecting Texas kids from sexualization. And he is doing a great job now as a freshman representative in the 89th legislature. He defeated Representative Stephanie Click to win that seat, and we're very happy to have him with us tonight. So Representative Lowe, welcome to our podcast. Glad to have you with us tonight. And, you know, I just kind of want to get a snapshot of what is going on in the 89th session. Of course, we brought our busloads of people down on January 14th for the speaker selection, and that didn't go the way we had planned. And so now we've had about 2.5, 3 months here with a democratically elected speaker. And just give us an idea, what has the session been like, especially as a freshman representative? What's been your experience?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you again. And thank you for all that you do for the cause. So this session, you know, I don't want to be the doom and gloom state representative, but it has been a colossal failure. And I think people need to understand that as soon as the session is over, the fight is on. We need more conservatives who are willing to take a stand to vote their conscience and vote good policy and just not do what they're told. I see every day somebody compromising on one of their votes because somebody talked to them or they cut a deal or, you know, I like being a state representative. I do. But I'm not so in love with it that I will sell my soul to stay here because I'm a husband, I'm a father. I've got more than politics is not my identity. So this session, as a freshman, I thought as an activist that, okay, the legislature likes to waste time, but once I get in there, I'm going to see that there's a whole lot more going on and that we really don't waste that much time. The legislature is 100 times more dysfunctional and more wasteful of tax dollars and time than I could have ever imagined. But it's been a lot of fun learning, and I've got some good colleagues on the House floor that have my back and I have theirs.
That's awesome. So, a couple of weeks ago, you and Representative Harrison, he put forth the motion to vacate the speaker's seat, and you were the only person who voted in favor of it from the Republican caucus. Tell me about that experience. Why did you try to get the speaker seat vacated, and what happened?
So we want to look. Over 6,000 Republican Party of Texas delegates voted on 8 legislative priorities, and not one of them had hit the floor yet. One of the first bills that was passed in this legislature was a Democrat bill. We are not prioritizing the Republicans. In fact, the speaker empowers the Democrats, cutting deals with the Democrats. Remember, almost every day we pass a Democrat bill. We have the majority in all 3 branches of government and both chambers in the legislature. There is nothing that we can't pass. And Representative Harrison brought forth a motion to vacate the chair. And let's be clear, it requires 76 people to vacate the chair. And Speaker Burrows decided to put it to a vote. He knew the outcome and so he was going to feel empowered by so many people voting to keep him. But I thought it was a binary choice. You either support the speaker or you oppose the speaker. Not all, but some voted to keep the speaker simply because they were having a personal beef with Representative Harrison. For me, it's all about the policy. And so I'm not going to lie. People came up to me and tried to peel me away and said, come on, don't vote with him, vote with us. But I wouldn't budge because it was the right thing to do. Remember, every failure from now on that the speaker does, Representative Harrison and I don't own it because we are the ones who tried to get rid of the speaker.
Yeah, and thank you for standing up for Republican voters that, if we had any say in that, we would have never put Speaker Burrows in as the Speaker of the Texas House. And as a matter of fact, you have a bill that you filed that you want the Speaker elected by Texas voters at large. Can you just jump in real quick and explain that bill?
Yeah, so just like how I don't like the city manager strong form of government, I don't think the most powerful person in any governmental body should not be elected by the people. Remember, we have had the majority for over 20 years, but we've never actually had a conservative speaker. We've got a conservative governor. We have a conservative ag commissioner. We have a conservative AG. We elect the lieutenant governor. So I think since the speaker is one of the most powerful people in the state, he should be elected by the people.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you on that. And thanks for putting that bill forward. I really appreciate you doing that. So, I was there at the Capitol last week for 2 days. I didn't get to see you because you guys were debating school choice and you were tied up and you were also debating the budget and other things. But when I was there, the most important topic on the agenda was renaming a stake. That took precedent over everything else that day. Like, what was that all about?
I swear they come up with the silliest ideas just to run out the clock. For example, another example of that, other than that stake resolution or bill, whatever it was, yesterday, a Democrat freshman. Now, remember, most Republicans have not have not presented a bill on the House floor, much less gotten one voted out. A Democrat freshman ended up laying out on the House floor her first bill. And there was like a 30-minute charade of jokes and congratulating her. And that's cool and everything. But where are the priorities? The fun and games can wait until we start passing the Republican Party of Texas priorities.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And so let's segue into that. Exactly how many of our Republican priorities have passed besides school choice? We've got border enforcement, securing Texas elections, stop sexualizing Texas kids, banning taxpayer-funded lobbying, securing the electric grid, Texas is not for sale, and ending federal overreach. Have any of those other priorities seen the light of day in the Texas House? Is that a zero?
Zero. That is zero. And remember, everything is by design. There have actually been bills in the Texas legislature that have passed the House and the Senate in less than 24 hours. So everything is possible. Everything is done by design. So we have not passed a darn thing. Today, Chairman Cecil Bell had the Texas Sovereignty Act, which was a GOP priority bill. And after it was laid out, a Democrat, raised a point of order. And so it was sent back to the committee to be adjusted so it can come back on the House floor. So we almost got one, but the speaker and parliamentarian team decided against it. Remember, the parliamentarian is an advisor to the speaker. The parliamentarian doesn't make rulings, the speaker does.
Yeah, so basically it's evident that once again the Democrats are running the House through their elected speaker who calls himself a Republican, but basically is a uniparty Republican, rhino, closet Democrat. I don't even know if there's a new term. Do you guys have a new term for this? We keep changing the terminology as we evolve here, but can we just start calling them flat out Democrats? Let's just stop calling them Republicans.
That's so funny. Somebody teased me yesterday on the House floor and said, hey, you voted with all the Democrats on that bill. I said, yeah, well, at least I didn't elect one for speaker. So,
that's awesome, man. So let's talk about also something else that happened last week. Representative Jared Patterson, who's over the local consent calendar, tried to get Planned Parenthood recognized on the House floor by recognizing Ann Richards' daughter, Cecile Richards. And you guys pushed back. Tell me about that experience.
So let me just add some context real quick. So I have my own resolutions, and Chairman Patterson is in charge of the resolutions committee. And I asked him, why are we not getting my resolutions passed? And he flat out told me, well, I can't control the other members on the resolutions committee. However, he does somehow help get Ann Richards' daughter, Cecile, a resolution presented on the House floor. Let's remember, Planned Parenthood helped in the murder of over 50 million babies since Roe v. Wade was codified by the Supreme Court. And so, and the Republicans allow this sort of nonsense to go on. So there was a lot of negotiating and squabbling. And to be honest with you, they tried to get the Democrats to drop that resolution so that we don't kill the whole local and consent calendar. And there was a bunch of negotiations. We had a caucus meeting, a very serious caucus meeting. And then we went up and I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think they just came to some sort of negotiation and dropped it. And then they just presented something less official honoring her. And so I just grabbed my stuff and walked out of the chamber. I'm not interested in hearing what they have to say about it.
Before we move on, can you just help me understand? We're talking about Representative Jared Patterson, House District 106, who calls himself one of the most conservative members of the Texas House. I believe he's put himself in the category of like the top 5 or 6 most conservative members of the House in previous sessions. He's also said that we have the most conservative Speaker of the House that we've ever had. He also calls himself a Christian who is pro-life. Help me understand how this Republican Christian who runs the local calendar would try to bring a bill to the floor that celebrates the death of over 3 million babies. I understand that under Cecile Richards' leadership, at least 3.6 million babies were exterminated under her reign. How does this happen in the House that's run by Republicans, David? Help me understand this.
You know, if you ever watch basketball and you see one team dominating, you know, they run the ball up and down the court. That's exactly what the Democrats do all of the time. And I'm not going to question whether Chairman Patterson is a Christian, but I will question his conservatism because there are great resolutions being held up. And let's remember, these chairmen have a lot of power. They can snap their fingers and get whatever they want passed through their committee. And same thing with the speaker. So it was just a colossal failure. And it was quite embarrassing that a state like ours allowed that to happen.
Did we ever get Joe Glover recognized? I know we had to pull the whole calendar that day.
Yes, she ended up getting recognized. Praise God. but it's sad that she was brought up the same day as this woman that I don't even want to say her name anymore, because what she did for society is disgusting.
Yeah. Hey, so let's change topics now. Let's talk about some of your bills that you've been championing. Let's talk about election integrity. First of all, you've got about 5 bills in here that I see. House Bill 2990, companion bill by Senator Hall, Senate Bill 76. And you've also got House Bill 4152, which requires hand-marked paper ballots. You've got House Bill 4652 requiring affiliation with a political party when you register to vote. You've got House Bill 4902 requiring proof of citizenship to vote. And then you've got a House Joint Resolution 170 proposing a constitutional amendment providing for a statewide election of Speaker of the House. We just talked about that one. But where are we at in general with election integrity overall, and then maybe highlight some of your bills as well?
So since we're going to talk about bills, and my bills have all been filed and they have all been presented to the committee. So they've been turned over to the committee to be laid out. This is an important thing. Legislators will file bills, turn them into the committee, and request a hearing. But then you've got to work your bill. You have to go up to the chairman and other members and say, hey, I really want this to get a hearing. A lot of times legislators will just file bills, request a hearing, but not actually work the bill. And remember, there's over 8,000 bills that are filed. And so you've got to work your bills. Sometimes legislators just want to say, I filed this or I filed that, but not actually work it. It's all a charade. And so my election integrity bills, Chairman Matt Shaheen is chair of election integrity, and he has not pushed hardly anything out of his committee, and nothing has actually hit the floor that has any weight behind it as far as elections. Look, they are basically saying, leadership in the House is basically saying, I don't want to end countywide voting. I don't want to stop using machines for elections. Everything that they kill, they own, and they're basically condoning.
Right. So if people want to put pressure on Representative Shaheen, should they start contacting the elections committee, all the members on the committee?
Absolutely. Peer pressure works big here. You can make one phone call to Chairman Shaheen, but then you can call other people on that committee and apply pressure to them. And, the great state representative Jonathan Stickland actually was able to motivate the grassroots to the point where people would actually say, hey, call off the activists and I'll give your bill a hearing. Or call your activist and tell them to stop calling me because I get so many phone calls, I have to disconnect the phone. That is the kind of work that we need the grassroots to really step up and help. Blow their phones up.
Yeah, I agree. That always works for sure. So do you have any idea where election integrity might be on the Senate side? Have they passed anything out of committee over there?
I believe they have. I believe Bob Hall's bill, countywide voting, I believe it passed through the Senate. I'll have to double check, but I'll be honest with you. I am reading bills till my staff is here till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, many nights. And so we're really focused on the House bills. I do look at the Senate bills every now and then, but we're really focused on what's going on in the House.
Yeah, that's a full-time job in and of itself, for sure. So let's talk about toll roads. You had a bill relating to the cessation of tolls, referred to the Subcommittee on Transportation, which is chaired by a Democrat. What were you hoping to accomplish with that bill?
I thought Democrats weren't supposed to be chairman.
Oh, well, technically I hear that they're only vice chairman and they only also chair subcommittees.
So my bill is simple. And let's remember, not every bill is intended to pass the first time it's filed. Remember, constitutional carry took many, many sessions in order to pass. And so I will be filing this same bill next session. The goal is once the toll is paid off, you remove the toll. And, if you go on a toll road, they are not actually obligated to put the money you just paid into that toll road. They use it for all sorts of different things, different roads, different projects. So it's really a racket. And the biggest racket of it is the inflated pricing that changes throughout the day. It is hurting small businesses. It's hurting individuals. And we've got to make sure that we end them. And so I hope it gets a hearing, but let's be honest, we're starting to hit the end of session and things are not looking so great.
Yeah, totally understand. Another area that's hitting Texans is this vehicle mileage tax, which they got passed, I believe, in one of the chambers last session, but was stopped in the other chamber. House Joint Resolution 164, your bill proposes a constitutional amendment prohibiting the imposition of a vehicle mileage tax. What would that bill do?
Well, let me first say the reason we have to be proactive is because the Democrats are running the Texas House. So my bill would simply forbid any future legislatures to enact a mileage tax without another constitutional amendment, because taxpayers are already being taxed in so many different ways. And the Democrats just want to keep coming up with new ways to take your money. Actually, Democrats and Rhino Republicans want to continue to dig into your pocket. And so, unfortunately, this is a defensive bill where we are trying to be proactive because, again, we are not running the ball up and down the court. The Democrats are.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Let's get into the topic of protecting Texas kids. That was the hotbed topic last session. I don't know how hot it is this session, but there's been a couple of bills out there that are really good. One of those is the Retail Decency Act, filed by Angie, or it's actually in Angie Chin Button's committee on trade and workforce, but it's being held up apparently by the committee director, and it would remove all the sex toy objects from Target and Walmart and retailers. Have you heard any movement on that bill?
So it is just sitting there. Hopefully it will get some movement. And, Luke Macias on the Luke Macias show recently spoke about this. It's a common sense bill. You do not want sex toys to be around normal products where kids can view them. And so we are hoping that they pass that bill. Representative Hicklin has done a very good job of working her bills. She's one of the few Republican freshmen that have actually passed a bill out of the House. And so I am praying that it gets some traction.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about one of your bills that I'm very interested in. It's the Cindy Clemenshire Act. Of course, everybody around the world knows about what happened with Robert Morris from Gateway Church molesting Cindy Clemenshire. And unfortunately, that happened so long ago that I believe there's a statute of limitations on that. What would this bill do to prosecute crimes like that in the future?
So what it would do is basically remove the civil statute of limitations so that child victims of sexual assault can go back and sue their offenders. Now, some people have been worried about frivolous lawsuits and those sorts of things, but the truth is the burden is still on the plaintiff to bring forward the evidence in order to seek restitution. Now, the thing is, it's also important to remember that that victims may go decades blaming themselves and then they finally try to go and get civil remedies. So I think it's important that we empower victims. I also have to give a shout out to, of all people, Chairman Jeff Leach. He passed a bill on the House floor recently that would remove the NDA process, or the ability to add NDAs in paying off these victims of sex crimes. And I think that is vital. I actually had a Republican come up to me and talk to me about the Cindy Clemenshire Act, which is still stuck in a committee. And they said, well, I don't really want to pass your bill because I don't want my church to retroactively have to make some payments. And I think that's exactly what we need. We need these institutions that have protected sex offenders. They need to be held accountable.
Yeah, 100%. We don't need to be sweeping this under the rug or providing cover for pastors who molest, children or minors, or staff or volunteers or anybody who molest a child should be held accountable to the highest extent of the law. Now, I know that Senator Paxton has a similar bill over in the Senate. I looked at both of those bills. I don't see that either has received a hearing. Do we still have time to get a hearing on this?
Remember, the only big controversial bill that has passed is school choice. And I just, as an activist, I was very hopeful and I was very excited of all these bills. And I'd look up every day and I'd be like, man, I hope that bill gets a hearing today. And every day we pass by, I'm seeing the hope just get smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's really quite embarrassing. Remember, if you kill a bill that would stop the sexualization of children, you are condoning the sexualization of children.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you. We need to stiffen our crimes against sexualizing kids in Texas. Do you happen to know where we are with repealing the affirmative defenses that Kristen Bentley has been working on all session in the penal code?
Not off the top of my head. I would have to look at my notes. But I will tell you, Representative Mitch Little has a great bill that would repeal some protections to school districts. Because if you follow Erin Anderson from Texas Scorecard, she is revealing teachers who are offending children almost on the daily, being arrested for that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm glad this stuff is coming to light. Another bill that you filed, which I really like, is House Bill 2291, requiring the inclusion of a person's sex on their birth certificate and prohibiting the change of their sex. Can you tell us about that bill?
So, birth certificate and driver's license or state ID, both bills came from Tracy Shannon, who has been a huge help and a great activist. And so basically, it's pretty simple. If you are born a boy, that's what has to be on your birth certificate. And you can't retroactively go back and change it to something other than your biological sex. And as long as certain people have the ability to go back and change their gender on their birth certificate or driver's license or whatever, we are empowering that behavior. I want to be very clear here. I don't hate trans people. What I hate is big pharma, big medical, and all of the people that are taking advantage of these mentally ill people. So we have to end all of the magnets that would allow somebody to be trans. We don't want to condone mental illness.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about one other bill on protecting Texas kids. House Bill 4672 increases the criminal penalty for continuous sexual abuse of a child younger than 14. What is the current penalty for continuous sexual abuse of a minor under 14? And what would your bill do to stiffen the penalty?
If I recall, it currently is 20 years to 99 years for continuous sexual assault of a young child 14 or under. The Supreme Court does not allow currently for you to get the death penalty for child molestation or some other sexual offense against a child, which I hope one day they repeal because they are ruining that child's life. However, this bill would basically make it life without parole for everyone, right? Because I believe in rehabilitation and I believe in redemption, but child molesters cannot be rehabilitated. I don't care what the statistics show, because the recidivism rates don't show the actual offense rates. I've written, when I was working on my master's, I wrote quite a few papers about this several years ago, and I think it's vital. I actually took an image of all of the child molesters on the sex registry in House District 91. I tried to put them all on an image, and I had to make them so small, and I still couldn't fit them all on. They're everywhere, and we got to get rid of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. One thing that we need to do too is we need to go back to our common law that we had in our penal code before 1973, when we brought Alfred Kinsey's research into the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee in Texas. And of course, we know that House member Sarah Weddington was on that committee. She was a freshman lawmaker that year. And she tried, the Roe versus Wade case in Dallas and won that case. But when they, gutted out our common law and our penal code and reduced penalties for sodomy, pedophilia, bestiality, sexually grooming kids, we've been suffering ever since for about 51, 52 years. I mean, I feel like we need to go back to those pre-1973 standards for prosecuting these crimes.
The truth is, when you don't have some of these things in the penal code, you are condoning the behavior. And so if we continue down this path, and we're just going to see the sexualization of children continue to climb. Minor attracted persons is actually a thing. It's so common, it actually has a term. And so that is the next step. The transgender stuff, yes, it was bad, but I believe the ultimate goal is pedophilia.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to protect our kids. All right. Well, the last area of policy I want to cover is public schools. When I was there back in March and met with all the lawmakers, I kind of got the feeling that school choice was about the only thing truly Republican that was going to be debated and actually pass. Of course, at that time, 70-something members had already signed on to school choice. So it was obvious that it was going to pass. But the general mood in the Texas legislature back in March was, that's the only thing that we're going to get passed. Is that still the mood, or is there hope that in the last 6 weeks here that you're going to get other priorities passed?
So I believe this is the game. And, I'm a freshman, so I'm still learning the game. But they are going to pass a few priorities at the very end, just so they can say most conservative session ever. But the thing is, they will water them down. And so when they water them down, we have to go back to the drawing board. Like sexualization of children, that's been a legislative priority for the last couple of years. It should be over with. So we'll pass something to stop sexualizing children, but it will be so watered down, we've got to go back to the drawing board. Remember, we literally could have gotten all 8 legislative priorities done the first couple weeks of the session. And we literally in the next 5 or 6 days could pass all 8 legislative priorities. So I'm hopeful that we make some progress on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We could do anything we wanted to do. It's just a shame that we're not. I just saw a post just pop up about Dan Patrick and Burrows had a meeting last night, and Burrows says that Dan Patrick had a great dinner with the speaker. Our relationship is light years beyond any speaker I've ever worked with over the last decade. And Dustin Burrows reposts it and says, couldn't agree more, very productive meeting. and they're saying that, everything is on track for the most successful and conservative session ever. So you got Dan Patrick and Burrows saying, hey, we're working together. Everything's on track. Exactly what are they talking about is on track to be the most conservative session ever?
The truth is, you and I are politicos. Most of the people that watch this are very engaged. The average person is not. So it's all about the messaging. And the Rhino establishment is really good at messaging. And I'm not going to speak ill of the governor or the speaker on this, but I do believe that both of them will have a lot of pressure as soon as the session is over, and they need stuff to point to for their success. Now, the lieutenant governor does a great job of pushing conservative legislation through the Senate. We just got to mirror that. I don't want it to be where all we pass in the Texas House is conservative Senate priority, RPT priorities from the Senate. We've got to pass some of our own because we have two chambers, and so we need to act like an independent body and pass our own conservative legislation.
Yeah. Well, in the last segment here of our show, let's just have some free dialogue back and forth. You wanted to talk about donors once this session is over. What did you want to say about donors?
So I just want people to understand. So after the school choice thing or the school choice bill passed, a bunch of people were like, oh, you're being paid to vote this way or paid to vote that way. No. First of all, nobody really gave me a dime for school choice. In fact, the governor came to campaign against me 4 times on behalf of Representative Stephanie Click. So I chose school choice because I believe it is a conservative policy. Secondly, after I finally won my runoff, lobbyists started giving me money. Not a ton, but a little here, a little there. And I asked them, why? Why are you giving me this money? I don't really support exactly what you're selling me. And they were like, it's sorry we didn't support you money. For example, TLR gave Stephanie Click $1 million. They gave me $25,000. So it's to reestablish or establish a relationship. And, for example, Sands Casino. I'm against casinos. They gave me $4,000. A couple weeks ago, they came and sat right here in the office, and I thanked them for their donation, but I said I can't support casinos. So I think that activists have a misconception that everything is quid pro quo, and it's not. A lot of times, lobbyists are just buying access.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, speaking of casino gambling, that kind of ties in with the lottery. Did that amendment to defund the lottery on the House side pass in the budget?
So it's kind of complicated. Basically, a bunch of a Democrat passed an amendment that would defund a part of the fund that funds the lottery, but a lot of conservative members had amendments that were tied to pulling money out of that. So when the Democrat came up there and presented her amendment, she lied about what her amendment did. And they hoodwinked us. They played us. And so the lottery is still going to go on for now. I actually have a constitutional amendment that would abolish the Texas lottery. I actually saw data recently that showed different socioeconomic groups that play the scratch-offs. The Texas Lotto markets to the people that should be playing it the least. And really, they are a tax on the poor. And it's really sad. And I think that we got to get rid of the Texas lottery.
Yeah. So, you've been in the legislature 4 months now. You've seen quite a bit. What would you say is the greatest danger to Texas's future right now? Is it the land sale to foreign governments? Is it the electric grid? What's the most pressing problem as far as Texas's success and stability in the days ahead?
It's election integrity. I believe that the Democrats and the establishment Republicans are perfecting stealing elections, whether it's the primary, whether it is state elections, whether it's federal elections. We have to protect our elections. Everything else doesn't matter if we don't secure our elections. And so really that is the most important issue. If you don't have fair elections, then we will never be able to pass anything in the future.
So, I've done an interview with Chairman George this year as well, talking about closing the primary. And he unequivocally said we will absolutely have a closed primary in March. But there's no state law to tell the SOS or direct the SOS to do that, or to even change the way we register voters with party affiliation. I don't see anything passing out of this session that's going to do that. Are we going to have a closed primary? And if so, how are we going to do it?
So, I'm no lawyer, but looking at it, so the political parties are private entities, and they should be allowed to close their primaries. But if we don't have a voter registration where you vote or register as a Republican or a Democrat or something else, then there really is no filter. So the question is, how can the Republican Party of Texas start to filter who gets to vote in their primaries? It's really kind of a up in the air, but you know what? I'm motivated. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go to Chairman Shaheen. I'm going to ask him again, please pass, or please let me lay out my bill that would close the primaries. Because, just look at what happened to Representative Phelan. He won his runoff because Democrats crossed over. So it has consequences. I know of Democrats when I was poll grading in my race who said, David, I can't vote for you. You're too far to the right. And so I'm a Democrat and I don't have a Democrat running in my race, so I'm going to vote against you. And we've got to change that.
Yeah. So, this last primary, we sent 20 new freshman members to the House. Of course, us in the grassroots, we were all excited about, hey, we're going to change the makeup and topography of the House because of this. And, thank God we got, 52 votes for a reform speaker. Very thankful for that. Whereas in the last session, we got basically 3 votes or 2 votes. And so do you feel like if we have one more good primary in March and get rid of a couple more uniparty Republicans, that we might get a reform speaker in the 90th?
So if you're looking at the math, so of the 20 or so freshmen that we've gotten, I would say 10 or 12 of them are conservatives. Some of them drank the Kool-Aid on day one and wanted to be liked more than past conservative policy. And so I actually think it is something we're going to have to continue to advance on long term over the next decade if we really want to save our state and our country. We really need 20 or 30 more conservatives. Remember, incumbents win about 98% of the time because name ID is the number one thing. We need people that are not politicos like you and me to start looking at candidates and at least taking a chance on somebody new.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's another factor that kind of equates into this next race, and that's the Rule 44 debate we've been having all session. Of course, those of us in my circles are certainly tracking censurable offenses to see if we've got anything. But do you think that some of the worst are just going to skate on through and get right back on that Republican ticket, or are some of the counties going to actually censure some of these guys?
So I'm not sure about if the counties are actually going to censure them. I hope so. But recently I overheard a couple of representatives near my desk joking about, hey, I'm going to get censured today, or I'm going to get censured because of this vote. And they were laughing about it. Until somebody actually gets censured and removed from the ballot, they will not take it seriously. But I promise you, once somebody is not able to run as a Republican, they will start taking it seriously. That might actually be the game changer that we need.
Yeah, we just need to set a precedent. We need an example of somebody that is the worst of the worst for sure. So, well, man, I really appreciate you coming onto the Daniel Report and sharing your journey with us, your experience with us. Do you have any words of encouragement for any hopefuls out there that may want to run on the primary ticket next year? What would you encourage them to do if they're really serious about running?
I would say the most important thing is learn the issues, right? And be prepared to knock doors. I knocked so many doors for like 3 straight years. After I lost the first time, I still knock doors for local candidates. You've got to know the issues and you got to get your face in front of voters. I was outspent 8-1 and I still won my race finally. It's because I spent time learning the issues and talking to voters.
Yeah, and so if you don't win the first time, you probably shouldn't give up, right?
Absolutely. You know what? There are crazy things that happen. I remember a guy in New Jersey paid the $200 or whatever it was to get on the ballot, and he won without doing anything because everybody despised his opponent. So sometimes just getting on the ballot and sends a strong message. So
do you think that voters back home, especially what we call the low information voter that's not a politico, are they paying attention to what's going on in the 89th session, or are they still just going about their daily life right now?
So I think that social media is an echo chamber. And so we have to remember that, you know, as we share these posts and post our own political stuff, the majority of voters do not see that. And I still believe they're raising their families, they're living their life, they're trying to make money, keep a roof over their heads. So they're not really tapped in. But they need good people to go knock doors, become precinct chairs, and get them engaged and involved. If you go to a neighborhood that is not really politically engaged, and you start talking to them about the issues and how we're being failed in property taxes and other areas, some of them will get engaged. And that's the movement and the momentum that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Representative Lowe, I appreciate you coming on to our show. Any parting thoughts about the session or otherwise before we call it quits?
I just ask that everybody do a prayer for the Republicans in the Texas House. There's a lot of pressure for us to cave and negotiate and not follow our principles. So I pray that my colleagues stay strong, and I hope you all will do the same. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and that's a great segue for my announcement tonight. We have a bus trip coming up to the Capitol on May the 16th, which is a Friday. Daniel Nation is partnering with Audrey Warner from the Matthew 18 group, and this is our 3rd annual Restoring God's Law event, where we go and pray in the old Supreme Court room for the overturn of the Kinsey decision of 1973. And anybody that is interested in restoring God's law to our penal code, I really want to encourage y'all to get a bus ticket. The cost is $55. It's a 1-day trip. We leave Frisco at 9 a.m. and we're home by about 8:30 p.m. And for more information about that trip, just go to my website, which is danielnation.com/events. And you can get a ticket on that bus. And Representative Lowe would love to invite you to join us in the old Supreme Court room that day from 2 to 4 p.m.
Yeah, absolutely. But also remember E1412. I want you to come by, and I want to meet you. Thanks for having me.
E1412. Come see Representative Lowe on May 16th. God bless you guys all so much. Thanks for tuning in to the Daniel Report. Representative Lowe, keep the fight going, and we'll keep praying for you, brother. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.